Okay, this is Alex Dixon with Group 1, We 3. Um, First thing that our group had to answer was describe the relationship between the life-sustaining functions and demographics described by White in the Camacho text. Um, the relationship between the life-sustaining functions and demographics described by White in the Camacho text show that minorities and those in lower social classes are at a higher risk to environmental hazards. For example, on page 66, the author points out that asbestos is prevalent in Chicago housing projects, which are predominantly populated by African Americans. Fortunately, a lot of us, if we find we have something like asbestos in our homes, we have the savings accounts or the means to replace that asbestos in our homes with something else, so something a lot more healthy for our families. Um, Unfortunately, people in like the living housing projects don't have that luxury. Um, the second question, how do different demographic groups have such different experience of hazards from life-sustaining functions? Sorry, my cats are fighting in the background. Different demographic groups such different demographics groups have such different experiences of hazards from life-sustaining functions due to what I believe are two main reasons. The first reason is the occupations that are typically chosen based on their social class and race, or statistically based on their social class and race. On page 64, White explains that statistically, those that are in a lower social class and/or are Native American, African American, or Latino are typically found in job roles that have the highest occupational risks. Um, I think that these jobs have the highest occupational risks for a couple of reasons. First, these jobs are likely to have sufficient, if any, insufficient, I'm sorry, if any, employee training programs focused on employee safety. And second, especially with those who aren't too fluent in English yet, whether you're illegal or legal immigrant, doesn't matter, there could be a language barrier that's preventing them from understanding the safety concepts and practices of their jobs. Um, I know just trying to get my start in my career, I worked at Geek Squad for a number of years, and I worked in their service center. Surprisingly, there really weren't a lot of practices around safety, a lot of classes around safety. That was actually my first big push when I became a technical trainer for the facility was to push for more safety classes because people didn't understand how to stop a conveyor during an emergency or something like that. I think a lot of that just ties into my second reason for why different demographic groups have such different experiences um, from life of hazards from life-sustaining functions, and that is education. I believe that not only in this instance, but in our country in general, education could solve a lot of issues. And this doesn't just, you know, mean, oh, you have to get your bachelor's degree or master's degree. Just becoming more educated about your environment and the things around you and how they affect each other could improve everything. I wrote that when people are more educated, they not only become more qualified for less hazardous occupations, but they are also more aware of the hazards around them and how to make a difference in their environment. If people are more educated on the effects of landfills near where they live, then they can make a push to their local congressman to, reduce the size of the landfill, move the landfill, just do something to improve their quality of life. Um, I know my sister-in-law lives, or she used to live about 2 miles away from a landfill, and it was the most ridiculous environment. You always smelled everything from the landfill, so who knows what you were sucking in your lungs. Um, and there was always like the constant incinerator. You'd always see the flames at night, so it was really good for you, obviously. The book chin reading, like a lot of people, I thought was a really difficult read. So hopefully, I got a good idea of what he was talking about. According to Bookchin, the role of utopian visioning for creating an ecological society is that of inspiration. Um, on page 334, he points out that utopian thinking today requires no apologies and that it is crucial to stir the imagination in creating radically new alternatives to every aspect of daily life. Um, I think that what he means is that the processes we have in our current everyday living aren't working to create a future for the environment and ourselves. At the same time, while things like a food cooperative are unlikely to replace a supermarket, we need to be aware that we have the power to choose the former over the latter. Um, and while we don't have to make immediate drastic changes, we should at least get the dialogue moving as to how we can improve the way we live and how we can improve our environment and give back to the earth that has given us so much. Um, I want to go back to the education being a reason for why different demographic groups have such different experiences of hazards from life-sustaining functions. This isn't really a hazard per se, but there's a charity that I'm absolutely in love with. It's called Charity Water. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may have not. It's charitywater.org. But I was looking at their process, and rather than bringing wells to African communities, they're teaching them how to be more sanitary, teaching them how to, be more sustainable based on that, with that well. For example, like I have one of their processes pulled up, um, and by drilling a well in these communities, they're not only improving the amount of time it takes for people to get safe water to drink. A hygiene worker comes to their villages and teaches them the importance of sanitation and helps them build latrines and set up hand washing stations. And then they try to get gender involved, and they have women as being responsible for the water committees that are set up in these communities. They teach them how to grow gardens with using that water, that well. Um, they also mentioned that their children spend more time in school instead of walking, 3 hours to get water that's not even drinkable. Um, and then, other communities learn what they did and then learn from their actions. I think what we do as a community, whether it be Kentucky, whether it be Colorado or North Carolina or United States, other people can learn from that and pull from that. I think that's how we've always done as humans, and that's the way we should do it. If we start building more factories and becoming less sustainable, then other people are going to pick up on that and think, it's okay because the Americans are doing it. But yeah, so hopefully I got everything. Tried to provide more examples. I took the feedback from Dr. Van Voorhees, and even though the first video was awkward, it's getting a lot better. So, all right.